Hi students, this is Miss Maples and I am here with a video on annotation, why we do it, how to do it, and then how to transfer this skill to digital annotation in a Google Doc. So the first thing let's cover is why annotate. It's not just busy work, okay? Annotating a text helps you focus and remember. Basically, annotation is a way to keep track of thoughts you have while reading and also help you make sense of and remember what you've read. So have you ever read a whole page and you can't remember what you read afterward? I'm guessing the answer is yes. I know that's happened to me. If you annotate, this won't happen. Annotating will force you to stop, think, interact, and connect with your text. And then also after you read, you'll have little notes that summarize what you read and help you recall the information. So even if you read something a week ago, if you go back and look at your annotations, it'll help refresh your memory of what you read. Also, if you have to complete an assignment or write a paragraph or essay about the reading, you have notes that can help you to do your work and to find textual evidence. So annotation actually makes your assignments easier. Okay, so how do you annotate? What do you write? Write what you're thinking as you read. That's the basic idea. How you annotate will change depending on what you're reading and what assignment you're completing after the text. But some annotations can include thoughts, something like that's interesting, reactions, if you disagree with something or you agree, you can note that. Connections, maybe you connect it to another class or a movie you know or a song or anything, connections to things you know outside of the text. Summaries, like if you're summarizing paragraph 5 through 7, basically mean, that can be really helpful when the text is difficult to kind of summarize what you have gone over so far. Write definitions of words that you don't know. So if you don't know a word, highlight it and look it up. You can write little notes like about figurative language, say for English, or diction or characterization. So anything that has to do with what you're studying. You can do little sketches, which is great for those of you who are artistic and more visual learners. You could like sketch the setting that you're envisioning, anything like that. And of course, you can write questions. You can question the author, question the text, or even write questions you need to talk to your teacher about later. Okay, so what about highlighting? I've had a lot of students who highlight and think that they are annotating, but annotating means writing, okay? So if you highlight, you must also write a note or annotate next to it. Highlighting on its own is meaningless. Yeah, it's pretty, like colors, but it doesn't actually help you better understand the information. So if you want to highlight or underline information, great. You could definitely color code things. Like if you're reading something to look for positive and negative connotation, you could color code the two types. But if you do that, you need a key, a little key like the one in the upper right-hand corner of this slideshow that shows what the colors mean, or write a note next to each time you highlight something. Okay, so how do I know what to focus on when I annotate? You always need to annotate with a purpose in mind. Okay, if I'm just reading a book in bed for like falling asleep at night, I'm not annotating because my only purpose is enjoying the book. But if I'm annotating for work as a teacher or when I was a student annotating, then you want to keep that purpose in mind, and that will influence how you annotate. So if you're annotating a history textbook, let's say, and you know you're going to have a test on facts about World War I, then when you annotate, you're going to pay specific attention to those facts and write notes and connections that will help you remember them, because that will help your purpose of doing well on that test, okay? However, if you're reading a poem and you will have to write a paragraph about diction and tone, then you're going to annotate whenever you see strongly positive, negative words and write notes on the tone that you think the poem has. So the assignment that you are doing after you read will influence what you annotate, okay? So always keep, what am I going to be doing with this text afterward? What assignment do I have? Keep that in mind as you annotate, and then make your annotations match what you have to do with the text. How do I annotate on paper or in a book? So when you're annotating on a handout or article that you get to keep, like for StudySync, or if you get an article from your teacher, you kind of have free range. You can use different colors. You can underline, highlight, write notes, draw pictures, draw symbols like exclamation points for something that surprised you, or a heart for something that you love, or a star for a central idea. So you can make up your own symbols. When you annotate in a library book or a textbook that you can't mark up or you'll have to pay for it, you can use sticky notes to annotate, like in this picture. You can do all of the same techniques you would normally do on paper, except you can't highlight or underline the text, but you can do all the other techniques on a sticky note in the book instead of directly on the page. How much should I annotate? So this is a question I've heard a lot as a teacher, and annotation isn't really about the amount. It's about interacting with the text so that you can better understand it and remember it. On a hard text, something that's really difficult, you probably have to annotate more than on a text that's more simple to understand because the annotation helps you through it. However, as a general rule, it's good to write at least one thing per paragraph. Okay, sometimes you'll have to write a lot more, sometimes less. But that's kind of a general guideline. Your individual teacher will give you further guidelines for annotation, so be sure to follow theirs and meet their expectations. How do I annotate digitally on a Google Doc? So during remote learning, you've had to probably do some annotation on a Google Doc. That's something that you will have to do regardless of if we're in class or outside of class. It's a good skill to have. So I actually want to look at a Google Doc and see how the skill would translate to annotating digitally. And I found an article called "Why is English Class Important?" So we're just going to practice the skill with this article. Okay, so we're going to pretend that the purpose for reading this article is that afterwards you would have to write a persuasive paragraph on which class is most important to study in school. So pretend that you have to read this article and then write that persuasive paragraph. So if you're going to be writing an argumentative paragraph about which subject is more important in school based on this article, you probably want to annotate key ideas and examples that show why English class is important. Also your personal reactions and opinions, because maybe you don't think English class is most important. So you could write kind of counter arguments to what the author's saying. And also summaries could be helpful. So I'm not going to go through this whole article with you. You can see there's different subheaders: critical thinking, close reading, writing, culture, and vocab and grammar. We're just going to go over the first couple. Okay. Whether you are taking an English class in middle school, high school, or high school, college, or graduate school, you may wonder why English matters, particularly if you plan to study or work in a field in which you think English is irrelevant. Possibly the most important reason to take an English class is its relevance to virtually any or all fields and careers. Whenever speaking, writing, or critical thinking is required, English class is useful. So I am going to highlight this part because I think this is a key idea, and I'm going to add a comment saying, okay, so even if I'm not an English major, this author thinks that English class will help me in my future job. I don't know if I agree. So you guys are seeing me, right? Just like normal. You have to go backspace and all that. So here I have written kind of a summary of what the author's saying and also my reaction to it, right? Like maybe I don't agree with it. Okay. Critical thinking. Analyzing literature in English class challenges you to understand characters' motivations, cultural contexts, and the causes and effects of various actions in stories' plotlines. Learning to analyze literature effectively not only teaches you how to better enjoy books, music, and film, but also how to better understand the cause and effects taking place in your family, neighborhood, and the world around you. English teaches you to understand your world with nuance and conviction. Well, maybe you don't know what the word nuance means, okay? So you can add a comment, and then let's go look it up. So a nuance is a subtle difference or shade of meaning. So like a little difference, small things. So we can go back to our article and paste in that definition. So now you'll remember what that word means, okay? And And then I think a summary of this paragraph would be helpful. So I'm just going to highlight the whole critical thinking subheading and kind of summarize what I think this is saying. So basically, this is claiming English class teaches you to think deeply and notice the small meanings of things, and this skill will help you in all parts of life. Okay, so as you can see, I have at least one note per paragraph, and if I didn't look at this article for a long time and came back to it, these comments would help me remember what it is I was thinking and help me kind of summarize the text. So hopefully this has been a helpful look at how to annotate both on paper, in a book, or digitally. And you can come back to this slideshow anytime that you feel stuck or you forget the basic ideas of annotation. All right, thank you for listening.